Let's go to the stock down portion of the episode and talk about some teams whose stock has plummeted over the past 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks since the NHL season started. Almost exactly a month now since the NHL season started. A few teams whose stock is absolutely plummeted. Case, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a team that is kind of a statistical anomaly. When I started looking in again and the same four sort of metrics or markers that I was looking at, and that's the Pittsburgh Penguins. And ultimately, this isn't going to result in me saying that they are where they should be or they aren't. And it's going to result in me asking the listeners/comment section, what should we expect from the Pittsburgh Penguins going on? And from you, of course. But Pittsburgh Penguins, 4-6. That's 27th in the league.
Yeesh.
Now, I'm going to get into the stats, and I want to remind you that the San Jose Sharks have completely ruined the Pittsburgh Penguins stat lines.
Yes.
And it is so skewed now because of that 10-goal game. I want to remind you that Gensel had 4 points in that game. Rust had 4. Malkin had 2. Karlsson had 2. And a plethora of others were scoring at will in that game. It was just a beating again.
And Chris Letang, my only fantasy player who I own on that team, had only 1.
Of course.
Great.
So their goal percentage is 58%. Their expected goals percentage is 59.12. It's even, they should expect to score even more goals. Mm-hmm. Their actual goal differential is +8 in this league. They're 5th in goals for at 29. Their goal differential above expected is -0.54. So it's actually not crazy. It's kind of where it should be. The Stars, definitely not the problem. I did mention a lot of points in that San Jose game, but again, Malkin, Gensel, Crosby, Karlsson, Letang, they're all firing on all cylinders, and they're on the score sheet most nights.
Add Smith and Rust into there too.
I didn't even mention them. Only Smith and Malkin are scoring more than expected on this team, and yet they're 5th in goals. The shooting percentage is 9th in the league. So, nothing crazy there, but it's still higher than it maybe should be in the end. And the goaltending has been middle of the road with 18% best save percentage. And Jari and Nedeljkovic are just below 0 for goals saved above expected. So why has this team lost 6 games? Is it the case that the 4 games they won, they dominated, and the 6 games they lost, they sucked? I can't track when I was reading the stats here. So I ultimately, if you have to eventually look into your gut when you're thinking about a team like this, because the stats are kind of all over the place, I think that they should be better. I still think that this can be a playoff team. There's so many stars on this team, and there's no glaring weaknesses to have them 27th in the league. So I think they're a playoff team, but I'm gonna push it now back at you. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you know, I picked this team to make the playoffs this year. I think Kyle Dubas did a really good job in the offseason sort of restructuring what this team looks like, at least on paper, adding some players who can defend a bit better and adding some sneaky good additions up front, like Riley Smith, I thought was an incredible add. So I think on paper, they're certainly a playoff team. If their goaltending holds up, which you've mentioned, it's been pretty much average. All 3 guys who have played, because Hellberg has played a game, all 3 guys are just slightly below average, which honestly, for most playoff teams, that's fine. You're gonna get wins. I think really what this boils down to, actually, let me back up. I'm not sure if you mentioned expected goals against in terms of how much this team is how many chances per game this team is allowing against. They're currently ranked 5th in the league for expected goals against, which is a good thing. It means that they're playing pretty good defense. And in terms of actual goals against, they're only 14th in the league. So again, they're in the top half. So all of these metrics, I think what it really boils down to is that San Jose really did skew a lot of these numbers, and it's hard to get a read. So I don't have an answer for you, Case. I feel like we're in the same boat here. And even when you told me that you wanted to mention the Pittsburgh Penguins in this episode, the brief research that I did. I was very confused what to make of this team, because on the one hand, it seems like, they're a team with the scoring power and the defensive prowess who's going to be able to get some bounces going forward, and it's only a matter of time. But then on the other hand, it's like, well, how have they lost 6 games and only won 4? And maybe it's like you said, maybe the games that they did lose, they were just out of it right away, and then it didn't matter. And the games that they won, they absolutely dominated, like the 10-goal performance against San Jose. So I think we're sort of learning on the fly the problem with a small sample size.
Yeah, of course. Or did Crosby start calling his mom on game days?
What do you mean by that?
He's like a super superstitious guy. And one of his superstitions is he doesn't call his mom on game days because he believes it resulted in 3 injuries, 3 of his key injuries. So
really,
just like how he made Tocchet change his suit in playoffs, and he has to tape his stick over again if someone touches it. And I think there's some other ones. I don't think he's washed his socks ever or something like that. Or he's still wearing the same ones.
Isn't it like the same jock or something? Is that him, or is that someone else?
I think that's him. So it's just he's just calling his mom on game days, and it's making the Penguins lose.
Maybe. I don't know, man. This team, you're right. I think you put it pretty rightly in saying that they're a statistical anomaly. Like, I'm not really sure what to make of this team yet. I think that's the beauty of an 82 game season. We just have to see how it plays out. But if I'm putting money on it and looking around this division and even this conference, I think they have a good enough team to make the playoffs if these performances keep going the way they're going in goal and with their stars.
Yeah, and like, let's say, which isn't even fair, you take away all of the goals in the San Jose game.
Mm-hmm.
They still have 19 goals, which is still more than Florida, the Islanders, Anaheim, who we just talked about as a stock up team.
Mm-hmm.
Their goal differential is a -2. Like, none of that points towards 27th in the league.
No, and the thing is too, like, I keep coming back to, they're 5th in the NHL in expected goals against. So it's not like they're giving up a bunch either. It seems like their
save percentage is fine. Like,
Like
someone's going to point out 10 games in the season, man. It's only 10 games, but we got to do this. What else do you want us to do right now?
Yeah. Well, that's why I thought it was like we had to mention that it's a small sample size, because sometimes the math isn't mathing this early into the season, and right now that's what it seems like for the Penguins. But based on their record alone, you're right to point out that their stock is down, because this is a pivotal year for this core. They brought in Kyle Dubas to fill in the gaps around the core, because that's what he did in Toronto, and seemingly he did a pretty good job this offseason making some good additions and some key subtractions, which helped the team overall, at least on paper. So it's a key year. This core isn't getting any younger. They don't have any time to waste, and they're playing like it. That's the thing. They're playing really well. They're playing like they know it could be one of their last years. So
yeah.
Anyway, it's interesting. Penguins stock is down right now, but I guess the conclusion of this conversation is, we expect it to maybe go back up a little bit and level out at least, and be sort of a somewhere in the middle in terms of stocks in the NHL. But yeah, so we'll end on that.